Thank you very much for that warm introduction, just the way I wrote it. Try to listen you guys up this morning. Thank you very much, and sincerely, it's an honor to be here with you this morning. Today, we're just going to stop by and just kind of talk a little bit about a bill that came through that's very important to each and every one of you. House Bill 1423, but I just, again, appreciate the opportunity of being here with you this morning to Prosecutor Curry and his team and everyone that's here, and each and every one of you who's taking the time out of your day, Saturday morning, early afternoon, to come here and talk about something that's very valuable to our community, an issue that we all cannot neglect. And you've had great presentations thus far, and I just want to commend the individuals who put this together, because it's very important for our society. And not only just for Indianapolis, as you heard in the last segment, things happen nationally. And this is a national conversation that has started maybe about 8 or 9 years ago, that it never really got legs, because no one really thought bullying was just, kids being kids. And back in 2005, when Ms. Senator Reese and I kind of put together legislation, we did a definition. But we come to find out, as you heard from the cyberbullying, that definition really went out the door real quick, because of cyber and technology. But as I said, bullying, anti-bullying legislation is on the forefront of national. Almost every day you hear media reports about bullying. School buses, and we saw that the lady who was a school bus monitor who was abused by students, and my hat's off to her, because it was been me, it went on, okay? And I don't fight kids, but I sure like to let them know how I feel. And things like that. So when you talk about what's happening in our society, ladies and gentlemen, you talk about, according to Centers of Disease Control, 2011 Youth Behavioral Survey, that 1 in 4 teens in Indiana have been bullied, in particular in the last 12 months. In the same survey, we have almost 1 in 5 teens have been cyberbullied. And also, we have in the last 30 days or so, you have 1 in of the children, 1 in 20 kids don't go to school because they've been bullied. And you know what that distinction meant? They were like number 3 in the nation. And when I presented that to my colleagues, they were astounded. They said, not Indiana. Now, we have a thing in the General Assembly that we don't, there's some things you want to be first in, you want to be at the top, but there's some things you don't want to be at the top. And that was one of the things that we didn't want to be at the top about. So we just said enough. Enough with that. And you know what? When we talked about that, we looked at the legislation, and we have really, Senator Reese had proposed legislation like 2008. I proposed legislation even last year. And guess what? It just didn't go anywhere. Senator Reese went through the committee, and it just didn't, it got to the end of the committee, and then it died. What they call, you looked at doing a killer amendment on it. But this year, it went through. And I was fortunate to say that I did the legislation that we had to go through. But let me tell you this. It was because of you. And when I say that, I want you to really understand about the grassroots movement that came with this bill. As policymakers, we come up with what we say is our bill. Okay, but it's actually your bill. And I want you to really understand how valuable you are when it comes to legislation in our state. The coalition that was developed had 28 organizations involved addressing anti-bullying. Over 40 individuals. The McCoy Group, Bully Safe Indiana, just to name a few, the Villagers, social workers, Children's Coalition of Indiana, Peace Learning Center, some of the individuals that are here at the tables were there, Butler University, Indiana After School Network. But from my perspective, 2 important groups of individuals that were there that testified, that helped this bill go through, parents and students. You think about that. parents and students came to the General Assembly and presented their case. And with presenting that case, we said that it came out of committee 9-0. It was a bipartisan effort. Now, in this day and age, when you hear bipartisan, you say, okay, that was good, but sometimes bipartisan means like 3 of one party and 1 of the other, okay? That's a bipartisan effort. But this one had myself as the author, Representative Boehning, Representative Battles, and Representative Burton, 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats. That's a true bipartisan effort. So it came through, it went over to the Senate, and the bill basically does several things. What we do, we ask for increased accountability from school policies and procedures, ladies and gentlemen. What we ask is that the Department of Education, along with the school safety officers and school counselors, come together, and social workers particularly, come together and develop and implementing the bullying prevention programs, as well as investigating and reporting, and look at the procedures of the bullying and discipline rules. Now, be mindful, in 2005, we kind of defined what bullying was. But as I said, bullying came back, it evolved so fast that we couldn't keep up with it. And one thing that we did was say, okay, we defined it, we did a good job at it, but I mean, this is really fluid. I mean, it's just not teasing anyone anymore. We think about the incident, we talk about hazing and other incidents that you heard earlier today, and the incident in Carmel basketball team. Those are the incidents that we had to really address. When we talk about school improvement climate, that was important. And this bill also addresses the school and climate within our schools, which means training volunteers and school employees who have direct contact with our students to help show them the way about how to address bullying prevention and reporting the policy in regards to bullying. And then what we ask is that when they develop that, and that development is going on right now, that it is age appropriate. Because our children, you heard the children in 3rd grade have phones and everything. So, but we don't want to make it so large so cumbersome that it's not age appropriate. So we're asking Department of Education, along with social workers, to come forth and to create an age appropriate policy. We're asking DOE to look at the outlines in those materials, as well as looking at, as I say, bullying prevention instruction provided with the school safety specialists and school counselor and other trained individuals in regards to bullying prevention and intervention. 2005 legislation just defined it and said how we're going to be punitive after it happens. This legislation, your legislation, looks at prevention and intervention. Prevention. We don't want it to happen. We don't want to, we don't want to address it once it happens, because as you can see, then the children's lives are really messed up because they don't know what they're doing. They don't understand. And we don't want to let that happen. It provides a clear definition in regards to looking at cyberbullying and electronically aggression. Now, you saw the statistics earlier. I'm not going to go over those. But when we talk about the 2005 legislation to now, that cyberbullying and the IT stuff wasn't there. I mean, can you think about all the Facebook? Every time, every 3 or 4 months, somebody comes out with a new phone. And as I said earlier, I mean, I can't even keep up. I'm very fortunate that my children are adults, because if I had teenagers, I'd be going crazy. Because, I mean, they move so quick. And you think you're catching up. And it's multitasking and everything like that. And when I was coming up, if you were fidgeting, doing all these things, they said, you have an issue. Now, if you don't multitask, you have an issue. Okay? So, from that perspective, we really focus on cyberbullying and looking at the effects of cyberbullying within our society. And last but not least, next and last, is it clarifies addressing bullying incidents. And what we asked is that we looked at the timetable which a bullying incident should be reported. And there's a lot of discussion with that, with Senator Miller and other individuals. If it happens, if you're on the road, do you have to address it within 24-hour period? We had to look at a reasonable amount of time because we had 24 hours right away. But if they're in Oklahoma somewhere, how you report the incident back to the parents, within a reasonable amount of time. So we had to have some flexibility with that. It also addresses the discipline provisions of false reporting of bullying. You can't say you've been bullied and you haven't been. So we have to address that. It also looks at the timetable, as I said, for bullying, as well as it gives support services for the person who's been bullied and for the person who's a bullier. So those are the things that the legislation really addressed in cursory review, and I think it's something that we had to do here within our state, and it's very important. Now, going back to why we really need it is that in the last 10 or 15 years, I say last 10 years, 12 years, in the state of Indiana, our education committee, which I was a part of for 20 years, have done a lot of things in regards to graduation. Higher standards, accountability, more testing, and children need to graduate. Well, one factor that's out there is that if they're not in school, they won't graduate. And then now that we've tied test scores essentially to school, to students' achievement, it makes it a very precarious situation. Absenteeism. Remember I said there are children that don't go to school because they've been bullied? Absenteeism. They're out of school? Absenteeism does reflect what happens with the graduation of our children and the graduation rate within our state. Anti-bullying legislation is a way for us to address the dropout rate and chronic absenteeism. Throughout the United States, there's 160,000 children who don't go to school because they've been bullied, off and on. That's a lot of children. You know what? Bullying is also a public health issue. Think about it. It's a public health issue. And we think about the quality of the state of Indiana and what we want, we have to really continue to address bullying and grow and prevent programs and have bully prevention. And within our state in the last, 2 or 3 years, we've had 3 individuals take their lives. The last individual was, I think it was March 5th of this year. And her mother, Angel's mother, came down and testified in front of the State House. You talk about something that was very compelling to us, was her coming in and testifying in the State House about her daughter who committed suicide because she was bullied. We have to look at what the economic issue of it. Because when the kids are not going to school and they drop out, what happens when your child drops out of school? They become part of the system. They become potentially a drain on our tax dollars. That's an economic issue. And see, a lot of people don't connect those dots. And those dots are real. And when you talk about economics and suicide prevention and things like that, those are things that affect our lives every day. Last but not least, we want to just have a safe school environment. Every child needs to go to school and feel safe. Our children need to feel safe. When they feel safe, they open up. They learn. They continue to become sponges and move forth in life. And then help us move forth. Like my grandkids come back and tell me what I'm doing wrong. In regards to Twitter or whatever. I don't have a Twitter account or anything like that. But I know every day I've been told by them, you need to do that. And so, I guess, a child should lead. I guess I'm going to get led. Okay, so, but those are things that we're doing in regards to that bill and what it really means. A little known fact is that there were 3 more pieces of legislation that came out in the General Assembly this year. One dealt with Senate Bill 1. that dealt with providing school safety plan within the schools. It established a safety interim study committee that's meeting right now to look at how we improve school safety within the schools. That's Senate Bill 1. Most of us talked about is Senate Bill 1 being able to give people guns to come to school. That was one component. But another component for school safety officers is that now there's a way to look at how they provide safety within the schools. Another bill that came out was Senate Bill 361. It addresses intimidation. You heard about intimidation earlier from the prosecutor's office. So in regards to intimidation and the communication of that electronically, and including the social network website, which was alluded to earlier. That's Senate Bill 361. Another Senate bill that came out was Senate Bill 352 that addresses gangs and gang principles, policies in the schools, and allows our safe schools to be used to provide educational outreach and training for school personnel concerning the identification, prevention, and intervention in criminal gang activity. Identification, prevention, and intervention in criminal gang activity. That's important. So we talk about our bill and your bill that we did, but we had some companion bills that kind of helped strengthen it. It was, Senate Bill 1, Senate Bill 352, as well as Senate Bill 361. Those were things, legislation that came back and helped strengthen your bill. And if things don't work out and we can't really get it right, we have some more legislation to help prevention and take care of our children, to give them a safe learning environment. We cannot continue to have disparities in education because of bullying. We know what the problems were. The whereases are there, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, what are we going to do to address this issue? We took some significant steps this time in regards to anti-bullying legislation and other intervention programs that we have policies. And one thing that we need to understand is that everybody thought it was a slam dunk. It took a long time. I want you to understand that even though you're here and you understand from the Indianapolis community, there's 150 legislators. So if you have people outside of Indianapolis, continue to talk to them. Make them understand what the issues are, because you know what? Indianapolis does not have a wall around it and say all our problems stay here. And 150 legislators feel that this is just an urban issue. It isn't. It truly isn't. It is an Indiana issue. And we must let our people know what the situations are. So again, I'm glad to be here with you. I applaud you. I appreciate you for taking a Saturday morning and early afternoon to talk about an issue that affects all of us. All of us. You cannot say it doesn't affect you, and it does. So again, thank you all. Thank you to the prosecutor and each and one of you that's here today, and look forward for more conversation. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.